Tyrannosaurus rex. The name alone conjures images of the ultimate predator. 17,000 pounds of bite force, 6-inch teeth like serrated daggers, and a reputation as the most feared carnivore to ever walk the planet. For 66 million years, we've pictured it as unstoppable. But there was one creature that could turn the tables completely. One dinosaur that could cripple, maim, or even kill a T-Rex with a single swing. This wasn't a larger predator or a pack hunter. It was a herbivore, a walking armored fortress that turned defense into a devastating weapon. This is the story of Ankylosaurus, the dinosaur that made even the mighty T-Rex think twice. When paleontologist Barnum Brown first described Ankylosaurus magniventris in 1908, he named it the fused lizard with the great belly. At first glance, that name sounds almost comical, hardly the stuff of nightmares. But Brown had only discovered fragments. He had no idea what he'd actually found. Because as more fossils emerged from the dusty badlands of Montana and Alberta, scientists began to realize something extraordinary. This wasn't just another plant-eating dinosaur trying to survive. This was evolution's answer to a very specific problem. How do you not just survive, but actively threaten the most dangerous predator in your ecosystem? Ankylosaurus lived during the final chapter of the dinosaur age, between 68 and 66 million years ago, in what's now Western North America. It shared its world with some of the most iconic dinosaurs ever discovered: Triceratops, Edmontosaurus, and of course, Tyrannosaurus rex. But while other herbivores relied on size, horns, or speed, Ankylosaurus took a completely different evolutionary path. It became a tank. And not just any tank, one equipped with a weapon so powerful that modern biomechanical studies have proven it could literally break bones: the armor. Let's start with the obvious. Ankylosaurus was covered head to tail in bony armor called osteoderms. But here's what makes it remarkable. This wasn't just passive protection. Every inch of this animal was engineered for survival. The osteoderms were embedded directly into its skin, reinforced with keratin sheaths similar to rhino horns, and arranged in overlapping rows that covered its neck, back, flanks, and tail. Even its eyelids had bony plates. Think about that for a second. Ankylosaurus is the only dinosaur ever discovered with armored eyelids. Not even the slightest vulnerability was left exposed. Recent microscopic analysis has revealed that these plates weren't just solid bone. They contained mineralized collagen fibers that made them incredibly strong yet flexible enough to move. The armor was so effective that a T-Rex could clamp down with its 17,000-pound bite force and still fail to penetrate. The teeth might scrape, they might crack the outer keratin layer, but they couldn't reach flesh. Standing up to 8 feet tall but only about 20 to 26 feet long, Ankylosaurus weighed anywhere from 5 to 8 tons. Its body was impossibly wide, nearly 6 feet across in some specimens, and positioned low to the ground on 4 stocky legs. This wasn't an accident. The low profile and massive weight made it almost impossible to flip over, which was crucial because the only unarmored part of its body was its belly. A T-Rex would need to somehow overturn 5 tons of muscle and bone while avoiding the most dangerous weapon in the Late Cretaceous: the tail club. And that weapon? The tail club. This is what transforms Ankylosaurus from well-defended to genuinely terrifying. At the tail's end, 5 to 7 vertebrae had completely fused into a single rigid structure called the handle. No flexibility, no joints, just a solid rod of bone reinforced by ossified tendons, tendons that had literally turned into bone. The tail could be held perfectly horizontal without any effort, like a medieval mace ready to strike. At the tip sat the knob, a bulbous mass of fused bone measuring 12 to 24 inches across. You'd think this would be too heavy to swing effectively, but evolution solved that problem. CT scans revealed the inside was cancellous bone, a spongy honeycomb structure. This kept the club light while maintaining surface hardness, allowing Ankylosaurus to swing it faster and with devastating control. But could it actually do damage? In 2009, paleontologist Victoria Arbor's team used biomechanical modeling to find out. Massive muscle scars on the pelvis showed this tail was built for swinging. The arc? 100 degrees laterally, wide enough to strike anything approaching from the sides or rear. The critical finding: large adult tail clubs could generate sufficient force to break bone on impact. Not damage, not bruise, break. One swing to a T-Rex's leg, and the apex predator becomes a crippled, dying animal unable to hunt or walk. Evidence of combat. Now you might wonder, is this just theoretical? Do we have proof that these weapons were actually used? The answer is yes. And the evidence is written in bone. Paleontologists have discovered theropod fossils from the Late Cretaceous showing characteristic blunt force trauma, fractured ribs, shattered limb bones with healing patterns that prove the animal survived the impact, at least initially. The damage patterns match perfectly with the size and shape of Ankylosaur tail clubs. Even more compelling, we've found tail club fossils themselves showing stress fractures and healed injuries. These clubs weren't just for show. They were being swung in combat, repeatedly and violently. Microscopic analysis has revealed impact marks on the surface of preserved clubs, tiny stress patterns consistent with striking hard objects at high speed. These are the smoking guns. This is direct physical evidence that Ankylosaurus wasn't passively defending itself. It was actively fighting back, and winning often enough that these animals thrived right up until the asteroid impact 66 million years ago. The predator's dilemma. So let's put ourselves in the position of a hungry Tyrannosaurus rex. You're the apex predator with the strongest bite force in history. You spot an Ankylosaurus grazing on low-lying ferns. What's your move? Attack from above? The armor's too thick. Your teeth might crack a plate, but you won't reach flesh. From the sides? Same problem, except now you're in the danger zone of that tail club. And remember, your tiny 3-foot arms can't block or defend. One hit to your jaw and you've lost your only weapon. Game over. What about the front? That wide triangular skull is a wall of bone and horns. No grip, no leverage. And while you're trying, you can't see the tail. One swing to your legs and you're crippled. The only vulnerable spot is the belly. But Ankylosaurus sat low to the ground, nearly 6 feet wide with a squat, stable stance. To flip 5 to 8 tons of armored dinosaur specifically designed not to flip? Nearly impossible. And every second you try, that tail is hunting for your legs. The math is brutal. Enormous effort and risk for maybe a meal versus broken bones and starvation. There were easier options. Much easier. The risk-reward calculation is brutal. Best case scenario? You spend enormous energy, risk serious injury, and maybe you get a meal. Worst case? You're crippled and starving within days. There were easier prey options available. Much easier. Final days and legacy. What makes Ankylosaurus even more fascinating is that it represents one of the final evolutionary innovations before the extinction event. This wasn't a primitive early experiment. This was peak dinosaur evolution. 160 million years of natural selection culminating in perhaps the most successfully defended land animal ever to exist. The tail club itself evolved through a stepwise process over millions of years. Early ankylosaurs had stiffened tails, but no clubs. Later species developed wider vertebrae that eventually fused. The large osteoderms came last, creating the finished weapon we see in Ankylosaurus. Even with all our modern technology, we still haven't found a complete Ankylosaurus skeleton. Most specimens are fragmentary, a skull here, some armor plates there, occasionally a tail club. But what we have found tells an incredible story. Recent discoveries, including new species identified in China and Morocco as recently as 2024 and 2025, continue to reshape our understanding of these armored giants. The oldest definitive ankylosaur, Spicomelus afer from Morocco, featured 87-centimeter spikes around its neck and pushed the family's origins back to the Middle Jurassic. So was Ankylosaurus. Really the T-Rex's worst nightmare? The fossil evidence, biomechanical analysis, and simple physics all point to the same conclusion. Yes, this was a creature that could turn a predatory encounter into a potential death sentence for even the most powerful carnivore. It couldn't run, it couldn't climb, it couldn't hide, but it didn't need to, because when you're built like a tank and armed with a bone-crushing wrecking ball, you don't run from nightmares, you become one. Tyrannosaurus rex might have been the king of the predators, but every king had to show respect to the walking fortress with the killer club tail. Because in the game of survival, sometimes the best offense is an absolutely devastating defense.